Hi, everyone. Good to see you all again. Yeah, thanks for joining us today for our webinar on embed Web3 into any website. It's also, as you may have seen one of my tweets earlier, quite a momentous day in terms of this is the completion of an entire sort of phase, really, of work. So are we all set up and live on all our channels, Matt? Perfect. Should we do just before we properly start then, should we just whiz around and do a couple of intros? Do you want to start, Matt? Introduce yourself. Okay. Misha, would you like to kick off with an introduction?
Hi, I'm Misha. I'm CTO here at Boson, and I like building things on Ethereum.
Indeed. Sukrita?
Hey, I'm Sukrita, Director of Product here at Boson.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt. I'm working in strategy and marketing and working on our sort of partner development approach. Nice to meet you all.
Most of you probably know me. I'm Justin, one of the co-founders here. So great.
Just 1 second, I'll bring the slides up.
Okay, let's get started then. So we're here to talk to you all about the latest component of our e-commerce stack, which is the ability for sellers to embed Boson anywhere. So we built a whole suite of applications where you can plug into the metaverse, you can build your own decentralized Web3 store. But this final component within our DApp enables sellers to sort of embed within their own website, commit and redeem. So which is hugely exciting, not only because it really expands the use cases for Boson, but it also sort of represents the last piece of this decentralized commerce DApp that we've built. But for those of you who are new to Boson, might do is just describe really what Boson does. So Boson solves what in e-commerce we call this sort of fair exchange problem. If Alice wants to buy a product from Bob over the internet, well, there's a problem, which is if she sends the money first, how does she know Bob will send the item? And if Bob sends the item, let's say it's a bicycle, if he sends that first, how does he know that Alice will send the money? So this is like the fair exchange problem. And frequently within e-commerce, this is solved by either kind of having a super trusted seller or by having like a trusted intermediary like Amazon. But of course, within Web3, we're trying to eliminate intermediaries. So Boson is this real breakthrough solution to this. And I might just ask Misha just to sort of talk through how we sort of solve this problem with Boson.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Justin. I guess with Boson, we've built at the base a protocol, and this protocol enables anyone to sell anything and trade that real off-chain asset with an on-chain asset. So any seller, any person can rock up, create a seller in the protocol, go, hey, I have a thing. Do you want to buy this thing off me? That's an off-chain asset. And I'll accept these tokens for it. And it's what we call an optimistic fair exchange protocol. So in order to mimic e-commerce, on the web these days, where if you buy something and you get it, you don't really do anything. And it's only when something goes wrong with your online purchase that you interact with the seller ever again. So the protocol assumes that nothing goes wrong, but then it gives power to the buyer in case something does go wrong, for them to try and mutually agree with the seller, some split of the money in case it's defective or not up to quality, or if they can't agree to split the money, which is held in the protocol, it goes to an independent third party for dispute resolution. So that's the baseline protocol. Then what we did is we went and built a dApp. So we built an open source, actually backend-less web application. So for like a dApp in its true nature, which allows people to create product listings as sellers and to put them on the web, and then allows buyers to rock up with their wallets, and for buyers and sellers to interact with each other using a decentralized chat protocol, and to do commerce, do trade. And we've done all of that by just putting some, JavaScript and HTML on the web without us having to be privy or for us to message pass between these two parties. So that dApp was very exciting at the time. And now what we've done, which is, I guess, the whole discussion point here and the whole topic here, is we've now broken that dApp up into widgets so that people can now do e-commerce on their own sites all over the web. So we built a protocol which we thought was elegant, and it's been tested and gone through a nice bug bounty program, and we're quite comfortable with. And then we built a dApp to show, look, you can build a decentralized application which enables trade. And now what we've done is we've started pulling out the functionality of that dApp so that people can embed e-commerce on their own sites and ultimately start capturing users using their own brand and using the protocol for what it is. It's not a destination. It's a set of tools which enables e-commerce on the web.
Brilliant.
Was that good, Justin? Anything else you want to touch on there?
That's a great way to kick off, and I think we'll ask you to deep dive a little as we go through. So, I mean, in terms of why is this important to Web3? Well, if we believe, as we all do here in this thesis, that the next economy is going to be a decentralized one, then it goes without saying, really, it's fundamental that a Web3 economy comprised of blockchain applications is going to need to be able to do real-world commerce without relying on intermediaries like Amazon or things like, high levels of trust, because this whole new economy is built on trust minimized, decentralized applications. So, Boson is really a fundamental part of that. And, just, listen to us. This has been recognized by not only some of the world's top blockchain economists, so people like Professor Jason Potts, but also we were made World Economic Forum Technology Pioneer. Now, I know a lot of crypto people, me included, may not be aligned with the political aspirations of organizations like that. Nevertheless, it's a very strong endorsement as we go and speak to big organizations such as WooCommerce, who we'll be talking about a bit later on, that Boson is viewed as this foundational layer that could transform commerce globally. And so, certainly that's the vision that we're working towards, but that we'll get there step by step. And today we're here to talk to you about a major step. So over to you, Matt.
So I'll just talk a little bit about how Boson's going to market and what the sort of core value proposition to brands, creators, merchants, sellers in a general sense. So Boson enables you as someone who might use the protocol to unlock that power of decentralized Web3 commerce everywhere. So decentralized as in there are lots of people talking about e-commerce. There are a lot of people talking about tokenization. Many of those people require some custodian, some intermediary, some trusted counterparty somewhere in the chain. Where Boson is different is that we're encoding that within strong promises of trust that sit in the code rather than in reliance on an individual. Now, what that means for well, that's that sort of second layer up that Misha is talking about. What that means for brands is that they can access truly Web3 native solutions in a way that is easy to do, that enables them to engage communities and to do that in a kind of an easy to access and low code sort of way. So here's a little sort of intro film, which we can. Excuse me. So we work with about 60 different brands and creators since we launched protocol, the first version of protocol in November 21, and have sort of successfully concluded many drops, many transactions through the protocol. But one big change that we've been making this year is moving to a more, I guess you might call, self-serve sort of model, and we've done that through a new series of tools in the Boson app, which essentially enables people to set up and manage their own drops. So easily tokenize physical products and then sell them wherever is appropriate for them. One of the things that we're doing here now with the embed launch is really enable that strategy to go on to the next level. So if any of you here today wanted to do a physical product drop where you're selling the physical products as NFTs, you could do that right now in the Boson Seller Hub, right? It'd take about 10-15 minutes if you've got all of your brand assets and all of your stuff in place to essentially mint that offer, that series of offers, and then launch that with your community. So it's really intended to be a simple, easy to access way to sort of supercharge your Web3 strategy. Think about what all those great brands like Nike and Gucci and Adidas have been doing. We provide a series of tools to enable anyone to get access to that kind of functionality. Like I say, we work with 60 plus brands. There's been about 15,000 products across all the different versions of the protocol that we've had. Done stuff in Metaverse, done stuff through web, and now increasingly we're doing stuff in any site and in any experience that a brand might want to do. Justin.
Brilliant. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, not only are we launching a really important component here with this sort of embed anywhere set of widgets, but this marks the completion of this set of suite of applications that we have that sits on top of the protocol. So it's a really sort of momentous day that, after several years of design and build, not only do we have a protocol, but we also now have a best-in-class sort of suite of dApps. That means anybody can come and use this protocol. So we're really sort of ready now for mainstream adoption, and braced for now for the next wave of adoption with the crypto spring that we are sure will come relatively soon. So just congratulations and thanks to all of the team that have been building this, which is obviously led by Misha with tech and Secreta in product, but absolutely delivered by them both and their incredible team. So well done on this sort of milestone.
I think Secreta should tee me up, and then I'll talk about the tech. Go Secreta.
Yeah, so just maybe pulling together some of the things that Matt and Misha and Justin have talked about so far. We've built out a seller hub, which is basically an end-to-end e-commerce solution that sellers can use to sort of manage, setting up their products and offers, as well as like managing things like shipping, things like that. We've also enabled a number of Web3 channels. Folks can sell on OpenSea, in the metaverse, on their own site. And the best part about all of this is that it's either a low-code or a no-code solution. And essentially, we've enabled brands to do things like what Puma and Adidas have done, which is to kind of do these primary drops on various different Web3 channels, but ultimately redeem back on their own domain or their own site.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I guess this notion of being close to your customer is what we were trying to nail here, right? So with these new channels popping up in Web3, brands experimenting, wanting to tokenize, and allow people to trade their physical goods. What we saw was people tokenizing their stuff, selling them on different channels, creating auctions for them, but then ultimately wanting to keep those customers, back on their domain, to keep these customers as their own customers. So with the redeem widget, which is the first widget which we pulled out of the DApp, allows for brands to embed redemption functionality on their own site. So what we mean by that is there's a button they have to add to their site, and using iframes and kind of like most widgets on the web, like a Stripe widget or a PayPal widget, it's very simple for the brand to embed redemption functionality. They can just stick at the lightest touch interaction is they can have a button which says redeem on some sort of splash page going, look, have you bought my NFTs? Come back here, redeem. You press that button, and all you have to do is add a few lines of code. You can see it all in the documentation site. We link to it on docs.boson protocol. So what you do is you create an element in your HTML page and you embed, a JavaScript library. And what the library does is it looks for whatever button you have on your page, which has a specific ID. And then from there, it then opens up the redemption functionality. So buyers are told what's going to happen. They're informed that they're going to, be asked to provide their contact, their delivery information. And then once that has been sent to the seller, it then shows the buyer, or gives the buyer the action to burn their NFT. And this first version of the redeem widget allows, again, is the lightest touch interaction. Those are the different stages which redemption goes through. And then the version which we're working on now allows for sellers who have existing e-com platforms to have the buyer delivery information flow into their existing e-com platform. So this first version uses XMTP and creates this kind of private channel between the buyer and seller. And that version will always be there for people who, want to use decentralized technology, but we'll have the ability for this redemption widget to speak with existing e-com platforms. I think I'm good there.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, and so much time has been spent also with sellers really tuning the kind of user experience, etc. And so, as I mentioned, with that we really complete a huge block of work in terms of our decentralized application. So this really means that we're kind of build complete and adoption ready, and really looking forward to the crypto spring. And we're going to talk a little bit more later about how we're building some bridges to mainstream now that we've got this whole Web3 experience kind of nailed, extending into sort of what we call Web 2.5. But before, okay, so let's well, maybe let's do it. So essentially what we've got now is, we built a d-commerce protocol. We're on V2, that's bedded down, it's been tried and tested, and working pretty well. And we've also just launched this d-commerce app suite. So we mentioned like the Web3 store, Metaverse Commerce, drops on NFT marketplaces, now embed e-commerce on your own site, advanced token gating, and also phygital capability. And so next, and when we say next, we're talking about Q3, early Q4, we will have all of this implemented, is plugging into mainstream. So custodial wallets, so non-MetaMask users can kind of use a username and password in order to be able to access Boson and store our NFTs. Fiat on-ramps. So rather than having to bridge from, buy crypto and bridge from different chains and all these things that less sophisticated users find difficult, you'll just be able to pay with your credit card. And loads of people bridge, instead of bridging currencies, they just pay with their credit cards. These two features are massively demanded by mainstream brands because their customers typically, if they're attracted by crypto, they don't have the sophistication to use, kind of Web3 techs. And then e-commerce integration. So, and we'll talk a bit about WooCommerce. So we are integrating with WooCommerce, due to launch around about October, November time. So that's a major partnership that we've signed with them. And we do have others, but we will abide by the principle of not announcing partnerships until we announce them. But then also, as we've mentioned today, widgets and SDKs, continuing to extend this library of website tools, really to integrate Boson everywhere. And so as we see this, next wave of adoption coming, and personally, I believe that's going to be led massively by this real world assets narrative, which of course Boson is a big part of. We will be ready with all of this infrastructure, apps, and Web 2.5 tools to really enable that as Web3's commerce layer. Okay. Probably not. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about WooCommerce and some of the thinking there?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of the question, why have we sort of chosen to partner with WooCommerce as the first e-commerce integration partner? Well, there's a number of reasons there, really. One, firstly, they have the largest market share. They've got about 13 million websites, so they're significantly more market share than the likes of Shopify, etc., which is obviously an important factor for us. But also, their kind of open source DNA and the way that WooCommerce and their sort of parent company Automatic and sister company WordPress are sort of structured is very in alignment with, it's kind of an early form of decentralization. It's very much in alignment with the same sort of ideals that we have of democratizing commerce. And also WooCommerce have a very forward-thinking strategy on Web3, and certainly their Web3 lead there is also, I think, pretty visionary in terms of where they want to head. So a natural partner for us, and one that I think we can bring benefit to millions of WooCommerce sellers, and also make it really easy to plug and leverage decentralized commerce within your WooCommerce site. Okay, and then so just running through then in a more sort of timeline form, some of the product developments that we previously discussed. So next up is sort of fiat on-ramps. So as I mentioned, buy with Boson, pay with credit card. We've got a number of sellers that want us to implement this so that they can sell to more Web 2 customers. Then smartly followed by our first phase of our WooCommerce integration. So there will be a marketplace app within the WooCommerce marketplace. As I said, we've signed a partnership agreement with WooCommerce themselves. and this is going to, connect us to millions of merchants worldwide. Then after that, we've got scheduled the custodial wallets. So abstracting away some of the complexities of Web3. Then we go live with a more full-featured integration of enabling sellers to sell on OpenSea. So by integrating with OpenSea, we really enable sellers to go where the kind of NFT buyer liquidity is. But by using Boson, you can plug things like the redeem widget into their own site, and then bring, sell on OpenSea, get all that liquidity, and then have all the buyers come back to their own site for redemption, where they can, create things like Web3 community hubs and really control that customer experience. And then finally, we on the protocol side, we're in sort of heavy sort of research and development phase on staking and implementing some of the required additional utility for the Boson token that we need to manage and balance the sort of ecosystem. So yeah, as I said, huge milestone of achievement today in terms of getting all the core products built. And now we get onto some of the real fun stuff and stuff that really is going to drive adoption that key customers have asked for.
Okay, that's the presentation part of the session over with. I'll just remove the screen and we'll go on to some of these questions. So Oliver is on LinkedIn Live, which we're also live streaming onto. So anyone there who's got any questions, please just post them in the comments. Anyone watching on Crowdcast, please do the same. So I'll just go over into the questions. If anyone wants a question to be particularly answered, there's a little kind of like question mark button. You can vote for questions that you like. There's a couple of questions here, guys, about other services. So someone's asked about Wix and someone's asked about Shopify as other sort of potential future integrations. So I guess the question is, in one part you've sort of answered it, Justin, which is why WooCommerce. But then the other part of the question, I suppose, is when might we look at other e-commerce providers to integrate with?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, we have a principle that we don't share, and often we've got contractual restrictions on discussing integrations up to a certain point. What I will say is our aim is to integrate everywhere in an order that makes sense, i.e. what's most beneficial to us and where we get the most sort of partnership coming back. So I would think all of those that are mentioned would be on the list for integration partners. The order, and as we get into sort of the end of Q3 this year, integration is going to be the absolute priority. We'll have built pretty much everything else we need to, and we're just going to be aiming to integrate everywhere into all the e-commerce systems and also into all things like the metaverses and NFT marketplaces as well. So you can just use Boson everywhere.
I think just to add in a little bit of statistics for everybody, WooCommerce has the single largest market share of all the e-commerce providers in the world. There's something between 6 and 10 million online shops using WooCommerce out there. So it's something like a quarter of all online stores use WooCommerce. So it makes sense from that perspective, and it also makes sense because they are, committed to open source, which is, very simpatico with Web3, and so that's where we're going first, and that's why we're going there first. So let's maybe talk about disputes. Have we had any cases of disputes yet, and how have they been resolved?
I believe we have. I don't know, Screet, if you want to answer that one.
We have had a couple, I think about 3. 2 of them were mutually resolved between the seller and the buyer. One was escalated, but it was retracted ultimately by the buyer because the seller was able to offer them a solution that they were happy with.
Yeah. I would also say that the dispute mechanism was built by a couple of the world's top game theorists, and they did a whole load of experimental research with, you know, different user groups and stuff as well on different mechanisms before before we implemented it. So yeah.
Right. So Geordie has asked about Fidgetals. He said, is Fidgetals already live and working? Because when I go on the website, it's directing me to a type form. So Misha, maybe you want to cover that one in terms of
yeah.
What's it right now?
So Fidgetal support is there within the protocol. So I think it's called bundles and twins is what we call it in there. So that the protocol allows you to create an offer, which is the language which you use, or product offering, which is a combination of a physical thing, which is an IOU off-chain, and for it to be bundled with an on-chain token. So remember at the beginning I said you could do you're exchanging a physical or an off-chain item with an on-chain item. You can actually exchange an off-chain item bundled with an on-chain item with an on-chain item. So that's there. I think that we're using something called the Diamond standard for modular upgradable smart contracts. And I think that part of the protocol is currently paused because we're just making some upgrades to it now, but it's there and it's within the backlog. I can't tell you exactly when we're going to enable it within the dApp, so it can be done through the Seller Center. But the hard work is done. Now it's just a matter of prioritizing which order we ship features in our user interfaces.
So I mean, I think also it's something that we're actively selling and working on with some sellers. It's just not self-serve, right? You know, at the moment. But you know, the protocol level is there. Yeah. Cool.
So there are various points on the site and in this sort of inbound marketing flow, I guess, where we're kind of capturing people to have a conversation about it, and there's a sort of supported setup process. Part of our network bootstrapping is, yes, the tools are self-serve, and we are getting, I think, about more than 2/3 of the new sellers coming on board are using the self-serve process, but often larger organizations and people who are using some of our newer features, we are doing sort of supported setup with them. We'll move on from that one, and maybe let's talk about, is there any plans for the Boson SDK to operate on any other chains like Loopring, or will Polygon be the primary one over the near future? So I guess multi-chain. Who wants to take that? Misha, maybe again.
So there was a slide which talked about what was upcoming in the Web 2.5, and one of those things is multi-chain. So this is actively being worked on. I guess the answer is yes and no. So we're currently looking at EVM-based chains. We'll be pushing to the demand actually has been for us to go to mainnet now, because we're seeing quite a lot of people really liking the idea of gating physical products behind popular tokens on mainnet. So that work is happening literally now. And yeah, there'll be news coming in that space soon. But we haven't had much demand at the moment for other chains. And I guess the EVM ecosystem or the Ethereum ecosystem, you know, there should be enough there the short term. And specifically about Loopring, I don't really know the answer to that. I don't follow all of the alt chains that closely.
All right. So Cass Pearl wants to get us on the hook for some deadlines. So will all of Next be done by the end of this year? Did I understand that correctly? Who wants to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to pick this up. I mean, obviously, there's always a challenge when publishing or sharing roadmaps that then you have, okay, when are you going to do this? And if you don't do one thing, or it's delayed, community getting kind of peeved with that. We are operating in a pretty agile way, and what I would say is we are building product at a rate of knots at the moment. So my best guess is that we will get all of that done by the end of the year. At the moment, we're making great progress, but we're also being quite opportunistic. There are a number of large integrations that we were due to do that sort of got put on hold, and those customers look like they might prioritize for next year. If that happens, some of those tail end of those those items might get reprioritized in favor of major customer integration. So it looks to me like that's a pretty conservative estimate that we will get those items done. But we will respond to customer demands if we need to, or indeed there can always be some delays. But we're pretty confident, and we've got a great, Misha and Secreta have got a great track record of delivering on time, and super high quality.
Brilliant, thanks. So actually, Oliver just cross-posted a question from LinkedIn Live, wondering what type of feedback we're getting from users. One thing that I might be worried about as a seller is the legislation or paperwork that comes with this new way of doing business. Do you see this as a bottleneck for people signing up?
I mean, I can start on that one. The feedback from users, I mean, definitely the market for Web3 has cooled. If you look at NFT sales, crypto sales, whatever, the market is cooled. We're all in crypto. We know that this is a highly cyclical, volatile market. And so a lot of the big sellers that we are in conversation with are like, okay, they're waiting to do big things when the market is back on an upward cycle. So that's for sure. But one of the things, a number of the things that we know that these more mainstream sellers are looking for are the things that we're building. So in a way, by the time Crypto Spring comes, we're going to have all this product ready, and we're going to be completely ready. So things like fiat on-ramps, custodial wallets, things that make it easy for mainstream sellers to sell crypto to mainstream customers. So that is my answer. Generally, adoption and interest, is sort of like a bit paused at the moment. But when it comes back, we know that it's these Web 2.5 bridges. So that's kind of the first half of that question. The second is seller is worried about legislation or paperwork. That is massive. Fortunately, we have two of the world's top blockchain lawyers. Got Dr. Primavera de Filippi, teaches blockchain law out of Harvard, wrote Blockchain and the Law. We also have a lady called Silke Noah, who's previously the general legal counsel of Gnosis, like a blockchain law and barrister. We've got the absolute best legal minds that have done all this techno-legal engineering. So that's probably one of the strongest aspects of Boson. And yeah, I mean, particularly with some of these big sellers who, have lots of compliance, we very easily tick those boxes because we were designed to do so. So you're right there, it is a big problem, and we're fortunate that we've had real strength and depth in that area.
Okay, move on. Maybe one or two more questions. And I guess we're up on 40 minutes, so we'll sort of maybe start to wrap. So just one question here for you, Misha, talking about the dApp. What do you mean by back-endless? What sort of data is on chain and what's kept off chain, and where? I guess part of that is around security, part of it's around sort of utility. Like, give us a bit of flavor on that. Misha,
That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who asked that question?
it was from LinkedIn Live, actually. So
Okay.
yeah.
Source of great questions. So in order to facilitate exchange using our protocol, a user needs to create an offer in the protocol, which is essentially it's essentially a data structure which says if you deposit this much money into the protocol as a buyer, you will then get a redeemable NFT. So that's all on chain, and the money's held on chain. The redeemable NFT links to some metadata which describes what the thing is. So the dApp captures like a form, like in any e-commerce system, and then creates basically a big JSON blob and puts that on IPFS. That describes who the seller is, what the contractual terms are between the buyer and the seller, and what is encoded on chain, like how much does it cost, what the dispute, how long the dispute period is, all that type of stuff. So all that metadata is stored on IPFS, and there is a backend there, like we use an IPFS pinning service, but it's not our backend, right? It's like Pinata. And then that is all the infrastructure needed to create an offer. And then when a buyer comes to the dApp, they read IPFS, they read what's on chain, it's displayed to them in a GUI. And if they choose to buy that redeemable NFT, then they've got it, great. Again, none of our systems interact with that at all. And then when the buyer comes back to redeem, the dApp checks to see if the user has an NFT. Again, we don't need a backend for that. It's just the user's browser speaking to a Polygon node, And at that point, upon redemption, the buyer needs to create a channel so that they can send their delivery information to the seller. Again, we're not involved there. So we use a protocol called XMTP, which is a private communication channel between two wallet addresses. So in order to facilitate this exchange, we need a dApp, which allows buyers and sellers to connect their wallets, interact with the protocol on chain, read metadata and write metadata to IPFS, and to communicate to each other via XMTP. And we have no backend there intercepting messages, as any of our entities doesn't have any backend intercepting messages and passing them between buyers and sellers. The buyer reads from IPFS and reads and writes to Polygon, and the buyer sends messages directly to the seller through XMTP, which we can't, if we wanted to, see. The seller, on the other hand, authors and creates product listings by creating things within the protocol on Polygon, by writing metadata describing their product's IPFS, and communicating with the buyer through XMTP. So all the communications go directly from the user, whether the buyer or the seller, from their browser, and either end up on a chain or IPFS or get sent via XMTP between the two parties. Hence, me being able to say it's a back-endless system. So, like, if I was going to be pedantic about it, I would say we don't run any backends because there's a Polygon node there. XMTP has some machines which allow these encrypted messages to pass between wallets and get decrypted by only those wallets. And IPFS, is a series of machines. But those are the backends which exist. And like there's the graph protocol is there, right? So in order to render the information, we use the graph. So it's being a pedant, I would say we don't run any backends to enable e-commerce, but we utilize public infrastructure like the graph, which combines data from Polygon and IPFS, and we enable users to speak to each other through a decentralized chat protocol insofar as XMTP. I hope that answers your question, anonymous person on LinkedIn.
Okay, I think we're up on 45 minutes, so maybe we'll wrap there unless we've got any other things we want to say. No. So I guess last thing I'd say is, so this is live right now. You can access the tools via the Seller Hub in bosonapp.io. It's all fully documented in docs.boson protocol. Misha shared the link just here just now. And if anyone needs any help, we've got a book a meeting on the main Boson website, or you can reach out to any one of us and we can set you up with a help session about getting started. So thanks everyone for listening. See you again really soon.
Brilliant. Thanks.